This is the Zoom Span 4 by Nike, and today I'll be sharing my first impressions on the shoe by listing its features, talking about my experience so far running with them and wearing them for HIIT workouts, and whether or not I would wear these casually. The Zoom Span 4 released at one point during December of 2021, but this is the 2022 version of the shoe. The Span 4 retails for $80 and I got these on US size 11, which is true to size for me. Starting at the upper, the Span 4 features an open hole mesh that at first glance seems breathable and somewhat flexible. The mesh is pretty okay, it does the job, but I am a little doubtful about it. I have the Span 3, but I haven't fully tested it yet because I wanted to focus on this newer version first, but I think I prefer the mesh featured on that shoe slightly more. The open hole mesh on the Span 4 gives me an impression that it's a bit heavier and makes the shoe feel a little bulkier than it should. It's definitely an area that was a bit underwhelming for me when I first saw the shoe, but I'll give it some time and see if I change my mind. The tongue is something else that was a bit underwhelming. It's not as cushioned and it lacks structure, which makes it feel very simple and unconvincing. It wasn't a deal breaker, however. If anything, you can feel a little bit more pressure from the laces on this area the most, but it's never to the point where it's uncomfortable. The rest of the collar is cushioned and provides a lot of security around the ankle. I was a bit concerned about this area when I first got the shoes, as the cushion within the collar seemed to be a little bit more rigid than most. But it turned out to be fine, as you can feel the cushioning sitting against the ankle, but so far it hasn't become uncomfortable and it's actually really good at providing a lockdown fit. Within the upper, you also have a set of bands at the midfoot that are meant to provide some structure. I call them bands, but Nike refers to them as 3 individual pieces of webbing that intertwine with the laces and are covered by a window of slightly different mesh material. These pieces of webbing tie in the midfoot area like they're supposed to, but it doesn't feel like they provide as much support and or security. There have been a few times where I felt like there was a bit of extra space inside the shoe, which allowed for my foot to move around a little bit. It's a minor complaint really, and I think part of it has to do with the fact that the toe box is a little wider, so the overall shape of the shoe stays somewhat wide at the midfoot. And this extra width at the toe box is something that I noticed as soon as I put them on. It reminded me a lot of the Pegasus 38 and the first time I put that shoe on, and how excited I was to have extra room at the front of the shoe. This was quite noticeable throughout runs and workouts, as the front of my foot felt free and pretty comfortable. The width also expands to the midsole and outsole, giving the front of the shoe plenty of room for when your foot hits the ground. The midsole is made of what feels like a standard EVA foam, but I unfortunately wasn't able to find which specific type of foam it is, so this is just a guess. It's soft enough to provide some cushioning, but still feels pretty structured and even slightly rigid overall. And it definitely doesn't provide as much energy return as more premium foams, but it still gets the job done. There's also an air zoom unit within the midsole, right underneath the ball of your foot, and this unit is meant to add an extra bit of responsiveness to the shoe when your foot hits the ground. It didn't stand out as much when I first put the shoes on like it has on other models, and my assumption is that this is due to the unit being slightly smaller or has less pressure. The outsole is almost entirely made of rubber with only a few areas of exposed foam, but overall the outsole feels pretty standard, nothing too premium and nothing below average. And that's something that so far seems true beyond just the outsole and rather for the entire shoe. For performance, especially for running, since these are running shoes, I believe that the Span 4 provides a very standard experience, but it's the right experience for its price point. Running with them feels just okay. It's not the best, but it's also not the worst. The upper is flexible enough to bend with your stride while still remaining structured and comfortable. It doesn't feel the most breathable even with the open hole mesh, but it also isn't the worst when it comes to retaining heat. The bands have done a decent job at creating support at the midfoot, but it definitely felt like they didn't secure my foot as much as other shoes with a similar band or cable system. There were points throughout a run where I could feel the shoe not being as locked in at the midfoot area. It was very minimal, but it's definitely something that I will keep an eye on as I keep testing the shoe. The extra width at the forefoot and the cushioning around the ankle though were great throughout and are definitely the areas that stand out for me when it comes to running. The extra room at the toe box is simply comfortable and makes your foot feel a lot less restrained inside the shoe. This is huge for me because of my wider feet, and this allows for a more pleasant experience while wearing the shoe. The cushioning at the collar never became uncomfortable or overwhelming. It was quite the opposite, and I was very surprised by the lockdown fit. The midsole felt, once again, not the best I've tried, not the worst, but it was just right for the price of the shoe. The foam definitely felt more on the rigid and solid side of things, which provided a lot of stability for my strides. Not a lot of energy return coming from this one, although the Air Zoom unit helped a little bit with creating a more responsive feeling. Whenever my forefoot hit the ground, I definitely felt a bit of an extra push thanks to it, but it wasn't as much as I've experienced with something like the Wingflow 8 or the Pegasus 38. The outsole, once again, felt pretty standard. I couldn't really judge it properly because I'm running inside, but it feels like it can get the job done. The only thing about it that I have to mention is that it makes the shoe quite loud when it hits the ground. The only reason I mention it, because obviously all shoes make a noise when they hit the ground, is that this one, it's quite loud to the point that even when I'm on the treadmill, I can catch it. The noise was also noticeable during jumping exercises when I tested the shoes for HIIT workouts. The midsole and Air Zoom unit helped a lot during these exercises though, by cushioning the impact when hitting the ground and providing responsiveness when jumping back up. The upper was flexible and it never became inconvenient for these or other exercises that might have required for me to flex my feet, like push-ups and planks. Just like for running, the collar and wider fit were incredibly helpful in providing a more comfortable and enjoyable experience during these workouts, which makes me believe that these would be a very decent pair of gym shoes that you could obviously also use for running. Just be mindful of heavy weightlifting since these are not entirely flat and they could cause an injury. As usual, I tried them on casually and my thoughts are pretty much the same as wearing these for performance. Decent pair of shoes to walk around the house or run errands with, and the price point feels just perfect for the type of experience you get out of them. Not a big fan of how these look with jeans however, so I will probably stick to wearing them with more athletic or leisure wear. And I think the reason why I didn't like them as much casually and aesthetically is because of the colorway, and it's why I'm excited to try on the Span 3, which actually consists of a different set of colors that seem to fit the silhouette a little better. So if you want to learn more about the Span 3, make sure you tune in for the next video where I'll be giving you my first impressions on that shoe, and I'll let you know how I liked it casually and for all the other things we covered today too. Thank you for watching. Pablo, out.